So I just started posting on YouTube a couple months ago regularly. The response has been great. I've been getting a lot of comments, a lot of questions from people, and a lot of them have been the same questions over and over and over. So I thought I would just do this FAQ video and try to answer a bunch of them all at once. What camera do I use? I use the Sony a6500, Sony a7S II, Sony RX100 Mark V, the Sony RX10 Mark II, GoPro Hero 4, GoPro Session. I'm going to get a GoPro Hero 5 pretty soon in the mail. I'm going to get a Yi 4K pretty soon in the mail. And I think that's about it. What lens do I use? Well, I made a whole video about this. I use a whole bunch of different lenses. Just watch my video. It's on this channel called Sony Lenses for Video. That's every lens that I use, except for one, which I've acquired recently, the Sony 18-105mm. What do I think of the Sony 18-105mm lens? It's not a low light lens. It's not a super zoom lens. It's not a super wide lens. It's just kind of an all-purpose lens. If I want different focal lengths, I don't want to change out lenses. I use it mainly on the gimbal because it doesn't get any longer or shorter as you zoom it, so that means it doesn't affect the balance of the gimbal. What lens adapter do I use when I use adapted lenses? I have a few adapted lenses. I use a cheap $15 Photo Diox lens adapter, but basically any Nikon F to E adapter will work. I also have a cheap focal reducer. A focal reducer is something that makes a full frame lens appear to be full frame when you use it on an APS-C or a Micro Four Thirds camera that have smaller sensors. What picture profile do I use? I've used so many different picture profiles. I've used everything from standard, which is what you're seeing right now, to Autumn Leaves creative style, to S-Log2, Cine 4 based profiles. I also use specialized custom picture profiles such as Omenio primers and the EOS HD Pro Color for Sony cameras, which is a special thing created by the blogger Andrew Reed on EOSHD.com. What gimbal do I use? Currently I use the Zhiyun Crane. I use the Zhiyun Crane mostly these days because I don't have to do a thing called PID tuning. It's very complicated software that you use to tune your gimbal to make it fit with your camera and your lens combination. And for most of the gimbals on the market, other than I think Ronin and Feiyu and Zhiyun, the other gimbals, you have to use this PID software. The Zhiyun Crane doesn't have this PID tuning, so I can basically just take it out of the box, slap a camera on it, balance it, and go shoot with it, and it looks pretty good. The drawback to the Zhiyun Crane is that it doesn't take that much weight, only about 1.6 kilograms, I think. Whereas the Beholder EC1 and the Pilotfly H2 can accept more weight. Why don't I use the Ronin or any of those other gimbals? Because they're too big. Should I use IBIS with a gimbal? Should I use in-body image stabilization, which is in my camera, when I have the camera on a gimbal? Yes. Next question, what external USB battery do I use to power my camera? Literally just anything. Well, usually I don't use an external USB battery because the cord gets in the way of the gimbal and yeah, it's just a pain in the ass. So yeah, usually I don't. But if I am going to use an external USB battery, the one I use the most is about 10,000 milliamp hours. But that's not a rule. It's not even a suggestion. It's just the one that I picked. What drone do I use? DJI Mavic. What do I think of it? It's great. I don't know drones very well, but so far I've managed to not crash it, even though I'm a horrible pilot and I barely watched any of the tutorial videos, but I should have. So it's a great drone for beginners and idiots, provided you're not completely reckless with it. What VO microphone do I use? Well, right now I'm recording myself with a little mic called the Sony ICD SX712U. It's about 10 years old as far as I know. I don't know if it's the best on the market, but be a judge for yourself. I mean, you're listening to it. If it sounds good, get it. On to the post-production gear. What editing software do I use? Currently, I use Final Cut X. I've been using it since it first came out. I followed every update and I love it. There are some things that are weird about the timeline and how it works that are hard for people to wrap their heads around. Sometimes the beach ball spins when I don't want it to. No program's perfect. I don't know if it's the best program. I like it. It lets me do what I need. What LUT do I use in post? Really, I mean, I'm not an expert on LUTs and how exactly they improve footage. Usually I don't use LUTs. I've used a couple of them just to try out, but yeah, I don't use any specific LUTs. So that brings me to my rant. This is where I want to talk about why the camera doesn't matter as much as you think it does. Because yes, the camera matters. Gear matters. All sorts of technology matters because this is a technology-based medium. Of course, we have to know what we're doing with our gear. I'm saying I think a lot of what we attribute to cameras or lenses or picture profiles or LUTs is actually mostly the subject that's being shot and the lighting that's being shot in. And if you've done the work of finding a great subject in great lighting, then most cameras, most picture profiles, and most LUTs will make it look good. Like when I'm looking at footage and I see a really great shot and I'm thinking, man, I wish I could get a shot like that, I'm thinking to myself, what angle is it taken from? What time of day is it taken from? What are the weather conditions? How did they augment the light, if they did, or are they just using natural light? Or if it's studio based, where is the general like overall lighting coming from? Is it hard? Is it soft? Those kinds of things. I'm really just trying to get to the bottom of the nature of the light in the scene. And then the subject matter. The subject matter is so important. If you're going for a warm look, it's helpful to shoot something that has warm tones to begin with. Same thing if you're going for a cool look. It helps to shoot something that has cool tones. Trying to change the fundamental nature of what you're shooting just by changing your picture profile or slapping on a LUT in post often leads to pretty amateur looking results. The reason movies look the way they look is because of a combination of art direction and lighting and costumes and makeup. And then at the very, very end of the process, there is color grading, but it's only there to tweak a bit what was already there. So my advice is analyze the lighting conditions of the shot that you're looking at and analyze the angle that's being shot from. Get a sense of the perspective. And then ask yourself the much, much more important question, why did they choose to do this? And you can say, okay, they made that decision for that reason, and now I'm going to make my decision for a different reason, but I'm confident in the direction I'm going because I've done the analysis of other artists. How do I do my transitions? That's something I don't really want to go into in depth. I don't want to talk about transitions too much for a couple reasons. One, because there's some stuff that I've worked out myself with how to do transitions that are kind of like, little tricks of the trade that I don't want to talk about too freely. The other reason is because I feel like it's really not the main problem with most people's edits. I've almost never watched a video thinking, damn, this needs more swishy transitions. The two things that are lacking in most videos are good content first, of course, and then good pacing second. Even if you have good content, if you can't cut it so that it has a flow and a rhythm and keeps the audience engaged, then the video is not going to be good, even if you throw in a million cool transitions. And maybe you feel the same way about my videos with transitions. Maybe it's too much. But one thing I can say confidently is that the world of video, it needs better content and better pacing. How long does it take me to edit a video? That varies, and it's really hard to say. Some of my videos have only taken me maybe a day or an evening to edit. If it's something that's been scripted or has a really clear edit flow beforehand, then I can edit within a matter of a few hours. Sometimes it takes me considerably longer. I would say the average for me to edit about 3 minutes of video would be 5 days of pretty hardcore editing, if it's something that has a lot of cuts and transitions and stuff. If it's something that's really serious, like the Hong Kong Strong video that I made, that took me 3 months to edit because I was, first of all, doing other jobs, but also I had mountains of footage. I had probably 18 days of footage to go through, and it was just so hard for me to wrap my head around creating a cohesive sort of, quasi-narrative out of this stuff that was completely randomly shot. Do I plan my shoots? Sometimes. For my first 5 videos on Vimeo that got staff picks, I did not plan anything. I just went out there, shot, figured out the edit and post, and that was it. For the last couple that I've done, Nomads of Mongolia and Hong Kong Strong, there was a good amount of planning because I wanted to get really in depth with the subjects. I wanted to be able to get right up close with them and spend a good amount of time with them. People who would normally not agree to be on camera. But then, for other videos, I won't do any planning still if I want to just have fun and make something that's a smaller project or maybe not as serious, like the cinematic vlogs. Do I teach? Do I give any personal lessons? I haven't done a whole lot of teaching. I might do more soon. You can find a lecture that I did with B&H online. I also did a thing called Cine Summit, which is online. It's another seminar kind of teaching thing. And then I have this YouTube channel, which is somewhat instructional and somewhat just a showcase for my side projects. How much do I charge for shooting? How much do I charge for editing? How much should you charge for your shooting? How much should you charge for your editing? Money is something I just don't really talk about online in public with strangers, in general. But if you're interested in hiring me for a project, you can just send me an email at brandon@unscripted.com and we'll take it from there. So that's it for FAQs for now. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and please like and subscribe if you want to stay in touch.